everyone, and welcome to my latest tutorial. In this video, you're going to learn how to make professional looking notebooks that you can sell in your shop, as well as the materials, techniques, and tools needed to get there. I've left some timestamps in this video, so feel free to skip ahead, although I think it's really important to go through exactly what you need before getting started. Now, I have made and sold hundreds of these notebooks for my shop, and I want to share with you what I've learned along the way so that you don't have to waste time and money working it out for yourself. The question I always get asked is, how do I make my notebook covers? I made a notebook tutorial 2 years ago about how I made them myself, and to be honest, I still came up against problems with lamination paper, the edges curling, the book springing open, and so much more. But I think I've discovered a genius way to avoid all of those issues. And yes, I used the word genius, not to toot my own horn, but because I really think this simple idea is just so clever. I've not seen anyone else do this, and if they are not sharing it. But I'm going to be revealing this in a couple of minutes, so stay tuned to find out how. If you're new to this channel, my name is Meg and I run the illustration business Fizz and Flourish. If you like this video and any other arty content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I share loads of behind the scenes content in the running of my illustration business, so if you're looking to sell the notebooks that you're about to make, it's definitely worth checking out the rest of my channel. Before we get into the video, I just want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Domestika. Domestika is the fastest growing creative community where the best creative experts share their knowledge and skills through professionally produced online courses. If you're looking to sell your notebooks, then I would highly recommend the course Digital Marketing Strategy: Build Your Online Presence by Alice Benham. You can make the most beautiful notebooks in the world, but without an online presence or knowledge on how to market yourself, you aren't going to get as far. This online course will teach you the tools needed to scale up your small business. To get an extra 10% off your next course, which is on top of any sale price, just follow the link in the description below. Okay, back to the tutorial. First of all, absolutely everything I talk about in this video is going to be linked in the description below. So for this method of notebook making, you're going to need a sewing machine. Now, I wouldn't go out and buy a sewing machine specifically for this project because you can make these notebooks that are bound with a staple. I've just found that the sewn edge is a much nicer finish, and I find that the notebook sits flatter. But a lot of you creative people out there already own a sewing machine, so it's not something you need to invest in to make these notebooks. If, however, you don't have a sewing machine, once you've found out my secret to making notebook covers, head over to the older notebook tutorial which shows how to make a notebook with a stapler, and you'll find that link in the description below. To sew through the notebook, you're going to need a thick sewing machine needle as well as extra strong, thick machine thread. You'll need a couple of bulldog clips, and trust me, you do not want to try and sew these notebooks without them. It's always best to add some sort of padding to prevent the clips from marking the notebook cover. This could be a piece of foam, fabric, or even wadding. Now you need something to cut your notebooks. So if you're completely new to notebook making, when you fold your paper in half, you're always going to get an overspill of paper at the edge. The most affordable way to remove this is by using a ruler with some sort of grip on the bottom and a scalpel. Of course, this is a much slower method, but if you're just starting out, I would highly recommend it before investing in this, an industrial guillotine. Now let's talk paper. So for these notebooks, you'll want 12 sheets of whatever paper you desire. I like using the HP Premium printer paper because the quality is great for writing on and it's the perfect thickness for sewing. 12 sheets doesn't sound like much, but when you fold that in half, that's 24 pages, which equates to 48 pages front and back. If you want your notebooks to have lined, dotted, or squared paper, fear not, I have created a digital download just for you that can be found in the link below. Once downloaded, you have access to all of the files needed to print your own paper as many times as you want. One download, an infinite amount of pages. You can grab a bundle with all of these paper types or individual downloads if you're only looking to use the one paper option. Now, what you've been waiting for, the big reveal on how I make my notebook covers. I have tried and tested numerous methods to making my covers in-house. Lamination paper, spray mount, testing an obscene amount of cardstock, You name it, I have tried every tutorial out there so that you don't have to. My conclusion, I spent a lot of money and used up a lot of time to never quite get it right. To get a professional look, and that's what we're aiming for here, I needed to get my covers manufactured. Manufacturers have access to large industrial printers costing tens of thousands of pounds that can produce quality that we just can't replicate at home. But I ran into a problem. There are loads of places where you can get notebooks manufactured, but where on earth do you get a notebook cover manufactured? I didn't want to pay someone the premium of making my notebooks for me when I can do that stage to a really high quality myself. I did, however, need their help with the covers. And this is where everyone started asking me, where did I get them manufactured? Well, it's a greeting card. All you need to do is set up your art file as you would a notebook cover, but order them through the greeting card section of pretty much any print house you want. I have always used printed.com because I am super happy with their quality and customer service. This video is not sponsored by them, but if they would like to get in touch. And the best part is you can get these covers manufactured at a fraction of the cost of a manufactured notebook. So, printers. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the printers because that is a whole other video in itself. So here is a summary of what I use. To print high volumes of lined, dotted or squared paper, I use a laser printer, more specifically the HP Color LaserJet Pro MFP. I also own an Epson EcoTank 7750. However, although the EcoTanks are amazing for low ink costs, they can be unbelievably slow when it comes to printing high volumes. So now that you have everything you need, you've downloaded my easy to use lined, dotted and squared paper, you've manufactured your notebook covers as greeting cards, here comes the fun part. You are ready to get making. With your 12 pieces of dotted, lined or squared paper, you just take the cover and pop it on top, making sure that it's even. Give it a tap on the table so that you haven't got anything sticking out of the edge. You then want to take your bulldog clip and position it at the top and bottom of the notebook without knocking any of the pages out of line. If you're not overly confident on the sewing machine, you can clip the other edges too, but for me this holds everything in place perfectly. Now we're ready to head over to the sewing machine. I've tried sewing these notebooks on a couple of different sewing machines, from a budget machine to a more expensive model. I was able to sew fine on each machine provided I had the correct needle thickness and machine thread. This means you don't need this exact model or an industrial level machine to sew through this amount of paper. If your machine is struggling though, I'd suggest trying 10 pages instead of 12, or reducing the thickness, also known as the GSM, of the paper. For starters, I want to make the stitch length as long as possible, so I set mine to 5. I also want to set it to a straight stitch. If you've gone for the greeting card notebook cover, they're going to come with a pre-scored line, which you'll be able to use as your guide. If you've printed the covers yourself, I would recommend scoring the covers before sewing. I go through how to do this on my first notebook tutorial, so feel free to give that a watch too. Okay, so the next point is really important. You do not want to stitch from the very top. You want to start about 1 centimeter down. The reason for this is because we're going to be cutting this edge later, so if you sew too close to the top, you're going to end up cutting that stitch line. You'll also be cutting the bottom edge of the notebook, so you want to finish stitching 1 centimeter from the bottom edge too. Use your hand to guide the needle into position, center of your fold line. We're going to start by stitching 3 stitches, then back 3 stitches, and then continue forward. You want to take this really nice and slowly and use that fold line as your guide for keeping straight. If you take 1 stitch out of line, the whole notebook is ruined, so it definitely takes practice. And don't forget, when you get to the end, you want to leave about 1 centimeter. At the bottom, I'm going to go back 3 stitches. Normally on fabric, I'd lift the needle up and that would be my back stitch. But for extra security, I'm going to go forward again on those final 3 stitches. I really think that the stitched edge makes the notebook look so appealing to look at and gives it a really professional finish. It also helps the notebook to sit a lot flatter when it's folded. With the staple method, I found that I had to fold each individual inner page before stapling it in order to get the notebook to sit flat when it was folded. So with a bit of practice, the stitched line just makes this step so much quicker. So now we can take the bulldog clips off and head over to the industrial guillotine. As much as I love this industrial guillotine, I went for the cheapest option I could find. After a few months, the clamp broke, so I now have to lift it manually. It's not really surprising for the price, but if you're on a budget, this has still been really worth it for me. Just bear this in mind if you're shopping around for one yourself, you might be better off going for a mid-ranged cutter. I'll leave a link in the description for a few different price points. So before I cut the actual notebook, I just want to snip the threads. We're now going to trim the top and bottom of the notebook. You want to do this stage before you fold the notebook. If you fold the notebook and then cut the top and bottom, I found that the very top corner of the cover will rip slightly like this. You might not need to do this step. However, I feel that cutting it with the guillotine gives a much crisper, cleaner finish. Now that you've got a nice neat edge at the top and the bottom, it's time to fold the notebook before cutting the final edge. Because you've already stitched the fold line, this makes it so much easier to fold the center. I've practiced folding notebooks a lot, and I found that the way you fold is really important. What you don't want to do is just go ahead and squish the center fold. Instead, you want to hold the notebook like this and fold the whole notebook. You want to hold it so that you're getting a nice curve like this and then slowly push the book together. And it's better to go slowly, pressing the spine gradually without pressing too hard in one area. This just avoids any bumps or wobbly spines. So go ahead and press slowly, applying more pressure each time. So now that your notebook is folded, you're naturally going to get paper sticking out of the edge. So let's go back to the guillotine. You want to hold the notebook firmly with one hand and cut with the other. So we now have a perfectly straight notebook with a stitched edge and a cover that has been manufactured as a greeting card. As you can see, the stitching is really strong and really neat. Inside, we've got the perfectly spaced dotted, lined or graphed paper, which you can download from the description below. If you found this video useful, don't forget to subscribe and switch on the bell notification to make sure you don't miss my next upload. I would love to see what notebooks you create, so feel free to tag me over on Instagram, where I'll be able to share your creations to my stories. That is it from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn how I draw digitally to create illustrations for my products, I think you'll love this Draw With Me video where I share plenty more hints and tips. Okay, bye guys.